Uh, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Mustafizur Rahman, the debater of the Gana Vishwavidyalaya Debating Society. First, I will. This is the Claudia. He's our invited guest, and she is our invited guest, and she comes from the Warsaw Debate Chamber of the Poland, and she will discuss today the prep time and the types of the motion. First, I'm telling to my audience that it's our special matter session because we were invited to her as a special guest for know some techniques of the debate. First, we will introduce to herself and will know the pandemic condition in their country. And can you and we will floor the Claudia if you are ready on. Okay,
Yep.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Nice. Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
We have a question to you that first you will introduce to herself my audience. That's the easy for approaching the all of the members or all of the audience.
Yeah, sure. You are cutting off a bit. What do you want me to tell?
Okay. Okay. Today's topics is we know that today's topics is the prep time and the types of motion. And if you are ready or okay, you can
Yeah, you are cutting
you
off
can
massively.
start your lesson
Cool. I'm
for our audience.
okay. Cool. So the structure of this will be quite easy. I will tell you something about myself and why this workshop will be delivered and what will be the plan. Then I will be talking, and if you will have any questions, you can write that on the live comments. I guess the section. Yeah, cool. And then after I finished, you can ask me some questions or write. I will try to respond. If you will have further questions, I can also respond on any social media account because I have time, like around hour and 20 minutes, no longer, unfortunately. So my name is Claudia. I'm coming from Warsaw. I'm coaching a lot of Polish societies, both as a job for high schoolers, but also like adults or students. I'm also giving the workshop sometimes to other international communities. I was working in the Central European Debate Academy with Thailand, at course, and like Athens Euros. So I had a lot of people who helped me to get a lot of information and who gave me a lot of experience. I also spoke in many competitions and I was judging. So I think that's also helped me to see a lot of problems and helped me develop. So I think the issue with this workshop is how to approach the prep time to not lose the debate during the prep time. Because I think it's easy to say that prep time will not win the debate, but when you will not spend this 15 minutes properly, you can forget about very key important factors which might be necessarily for you to deliver into the round, but also types of motion which literally indicate to you what you need to prove or also what the judges or CAs expect from the motion to happen. I will be using the tournament briefing to go with the types of motions. But before that, I think few useful informations which some of my friends tell me, and I think it's nice to share this particular knowledge. I think every time when you are seeing the motion, you should respond to the question in the 15 minutes, what I need to prove to win this motion, and what methods I need to make to be sure that people will not rebut me, or how I can achieve my goal, right? That means that you don't need to list 10 arguments. That means that you don't need to win every single thing in the debate, but you need to win the most important one, right? So probably it's a good approach to ask yourself, what is the most important problem which I'm capable to do, or why this motion was set, right? And then ask yourself and ask your partner what we need to achieve and what we need to prove step by step for this statement to be true, right? So I think that's the first key advice to do for prep time, to think about the debate as a whole, not about the individual cases, and not going detail by details or just like listing 20 actors which might be involved or might be influenced by the motion. Because if you didn't prove how the process will happen, that will be irrelevant in the end, or at least will be less worthy than other points of information. So I think that's just like broadly before we go directly to types of motion and how to respond to certain questions. Firstly, I think every tournament or every debate have a motion, and the motion have particular wording, sometimes have particular info slides, right? I think it's important to sit and for a minute check every word if you understand what does it mean, and also if this is something which whole debate which understands, right? So for example, if the motion is that something is illegitimate or something is immoral, this is not obvious term and not obvious for everyone what immorality means, right? So probably you need to set certain metric, or you need to show even intuition pump, right? So when something is legitimate, where something is illegitimate, right? I think this is some important process which can help you and all of the people in the debate be on the same page and give you clear criteria why you're winning or why you're losing, right? So I think key terms sometimes okay, I will respond to that later, right? So I think sometimes when you're sitting on the prep time, that's important because that will be the metric which the other team will need to prove that this is legitimate. So you need to spend significant amount of time to be sure that you deliver clear information, what was going on and why something is set, right? Second of all, I think sometimes when the word is not clear, people are giving info slides. But info slides usually give you example to show you where is the difference, or to find in your memory some kind of recognition which is easier to like linked facts, right? This is not exclusive. This is not defined emotion. So you shouldn't be spending all of the time on your prep time to show how this particular example play in the debate, because it's problematic if people takes down the example or gave you counterexample, then judge is sitting with example and what I should do, right? So I think it's better just to find the common thing which is connected for all of the things which will be examples in the motion or also in the wordings. We will talk about that more details when we have like the motion example, right? Then I think it's important to know that proposition have certain fiat to do things, right? So you know that in some motions, if people want to make opposition, if people want to rebut you, they need to assume that you will be capable to do particular action, right? But you don't have complete fiat to prove that this action will be done in the best plausible way for your case, right? So for example, if I have a motion that you will give the direct support to developing countries, like direct cash to the citizens instead of giving like funding by the foundations to the government, you can't assume that that will be done like every single member having this money go to every citizen in the village and directly pass them the money in their currency with some useful tips how to spend this, right? Like probably you will be capable, you will have this amount of money, but you need to define and give us analysis, like what is the likely scenario, how this will be done, right? What will this process looks like, how people will be involved, how people will react, right? So I think regardless, if something is plausible to make, you need to show how, in which way that will be made, or also why it's likely that that will be done in the best way, or at least in a reasonable way, right? Because here is the crux, and here is the important, crucial part of this. If you build all of your analysis and if you define the debate which gave benefits only if your best case scenario is fulfilled. Like, for example, people will spend that well, or for example, in other motions, all of the people will go and follow the particular rule or the particular change. And if opposition told you that you will not that in the effective way, that a lot of effects will be mitigated because will be a lot of obstacles, or people will not follow, or will be other crux, right? Then, if all of your analysis rely on best case scenario, it's extremely hard for you to find the middle ground and show that that's apply in all scenarios, right? So be careful and try to think about cases in the mediocre average way, right? Not giving American dream or like the best plausible case, or at least spend significant amount of time to show why this is likely scenario. But try to be in the middle ground. So that's in terms of fiat. Let's be more direct, and let's talk about types of motions, starting from the easiest one. So in every prep time, when you see the motion, you automatically know what types of motion is that, right? So for example, if you have this house would legalize marijuana, or this house would ban cigarettes, or this house would allow surrogacy to happen, etc. This is clear policy motion, right? So policy motion is the question if the policy made will bring more harm or more goods. But in policy motion, because you actually implement this, you are not talking in the vacuum, or you are not talking about potential pro and cons. You need to show how that will be received. And here is the important tip how to do this. Debates happen in reality. Judges are average citizens. They are not the characters in a book or movie when you have happy ending. They are not the fantastic storytellers or like listeners, which means that you need to put that to the ground, which means that after you prove these mechanisms, I need to be informed, and I need to be capable to see this case implemented, right? So, for example, if you want to ban cigarettes, or if you want to ban drugs, you probably need to tell me how that will be done by media, how people will be talking about that, right? Like probably that will be not, okay, smoking is banned, everyone will go to prison if you will try to start to smoke. Of course, if you are addicted, we will do something. Like that's the real questions, how people will react for particular policy, and how the people who are implementing the policy need to be around this, right? So policy motion, it's not easy to set, yes, we can do this. That's the way how we will do this. We just pass the bill, or like we just announce this in the media. But you need to consider what kind of factors and what kind of requirements have your policy to be successful, to be effective, and to bring people a significant amount of benefits, right? I think this is something. Which sometimes people are forgetting, and something which might be incredibly important. Second of all, I think this is also something important. You are a state actor, right? So also your policy is applying to majority. So how to set argument properly? Okay, so I think everyone knows this motion. So this house would implement higher taxes for meat, right? So for meat products, it might be compared to the acciza, which is like the alcohol tax, which means that significant increase the price of the product, right? So you need to show why meat should be more expensive, right? So you need to justify why that should be done and what is the problem in the status quo. So I think if you want to run this argument properly, you need to find few reasons why meat is different than vegetables, for example, or like why meat is different than like candies or some other product, right? So you're thinking, what is the first issue with meat? Hey, looking for protests. People are not eating meat because this is bad for animals and this is bad for their suffering. So you're finding that might be immoral or illegitimate because that's also someone who is living, right? So that's you have first reason why this is different product than other ones, and why people have objections. Second of all, you think, hey, this is probably bad for environment, because when you have a lot of cows living in like the South America, you heard that you need to use a lot of water. They're also creating a lot of pollution, and this is problematic. So you think, okay, so I also have environment which is harmed by this particular reason. I have second reason why I should do this. Thirdly, you might say, okay, that might be unhealthy for people's lives, because like we have a lot of GMO products, or also because like that was culturally said it, and we want to change this pattern because we are seeing that we need to do that for particular people, right? Therefore, what is the conclusion of this? The conclusion is a lot of people have issue with eating meat, right? B, a lot of countries need to react for the demand for meat because it's bad for their environment, because this is problematic in a lot of different questions. Thirdly, I think you need to convince people to eat less meat, right? Because if you decrease the demand on meat, then you don't need that to that extent, etc. So you have a reasoning, right? Now, this is the first part of this argument. So you're telling to people why it's okay to do this. But this is not enough to win this debate, right? Because proving that this is okay to do this, opening opposition can stand up and say, look, this is not okay to do this because people need to eat meat, because this is something which is cheap, this is something which is accessible, a lot of people have a lot of farms, and we don't know how to replace this because this is like the fancy vegan people who are going to Starbucks and they have amount of money to do this, right? Therefore, only based on this argument is not complete, right? Because even if you prove that this is legitimate, even if you prove that this is right and a moral thing to do, you are missing the part which is effective, right? Therefore, you need to explain how people will react, how market will react, and what will happen, right? So you can say, look, we know that meat will be more expensive for people who are poor, right? Because rich people, meat more expensive, I don't care. So you can easily say that they will be not mostly impacted by this motion, right? Because if I have enough capital, I don't care if I pay for money 5 euros or 20 euros. This is something. This is not something really important. But if you are a poor person, and if you culturally you were always raised to eat meat, when your parents, grandparents always tell you, oh, you can leave potatoes, that's very Eastern European, but you can leave potatoes, but you need to eat meat, etc. I think it's really hard to convince these people that they should not eat meat. So you need to make significant amount of job to prove that that will be easy transition for these people, right? So you need to explain why we still have substitutes, that people who will be not have enough capital to eat meat will find some zucchini or like tofu or any other products, which still will have a lot of important things for your body and for your health. So the question is, these people still need to eat, right? Probably meat will be too expensive for them. What will people do? They will probably decrease prices, at least some companies, at least some producers, because you want to sell your product, because you are seeing that like it's always demand and supply for food. So probably some products will decrease the price and the people will have chance to get this, right? Therefore, you are capable to explain why the most vulnerable group for this, like people who didn't have capital based on raising taxes, still will be capable to get benefits, right? But then you can also set that people, because money is the biggest incentive, right, for the people in terms of food. Like if people will have money, probably they will be eat sushi for all the time, even if this is not like the most important product. But when you don't have, you are going for cheaper product, not necessarily the best tasty product. Therefore, you can analyze why it's likely that people will eat less meat, right? And then you can draw all of the impacts, that environment will be better in the long term, that people will be satisfied, that you finally recognize the animal rights, right? That you finally recognize the religious rituals or other ideas. All of this it's combine A, reasoning why you should do something, B, how you will do something, and 3, what will be the outcome of this. So that was the response to Ruba question, I think, how to set argument properly. But what is important and crucial to note here, you need to concede how people react for changing the motion or how people perceive the information getting to them, right? So I told you that probably the people will be pissed to some extent, or like the people who will be like, oh, why we should pay more? So you need to find a way how to decrease their outrage, decrease their anger, or give some kind of opportunities or reasoning, right? But also, I think it's easier for state and the government to pass other policies which are taking care about the environment and other things, right? Because you are consistent, because you are saying that this is not, we are only like looking for cleaning water, or we are not only looking for CO2 and like decrease the amount of cars in the city center, but we are looking comprehensively, which means that people have like a clear picture, what is the goal of the state, etc., right? So I think second idea for the motion, which is also quite popular, that's motion from Athens Open, which was the prep motion to European Championships last year. This house would legalize all drugs. Sounds problematic, but when you are thinking of this motion, you are finding a lot of things which can be better and will not be symmetric. You can say that, look, in the status quo, even if drugs are illegal, we have so many people addicted. We have so many people going to rehab. We have so many broken families. We have so many gangs, etc. And this is still when it's illegal. Therefore, it's super hard to see why when that become legal and like access will be in the shops, the situation will get worse, right? So you need to find a way where the change happen, right? When you can change people perception, when you can easier ask for help. The conclusion of all of these examples and all of this motion, it's you need to respond to a few questions when you are setting the motion, when you are setting the argument, right? What is the reasoning for me to implement this argument, or what is the reason for me analyzing this? B, what's happening if that's policy motion, what will change, and how this change will occur and how this change will happen. And then also, what will be the outcome of this, which means how people will react, who will react. It's also very hard. Sometimes in the debate, you are saying, and then everyone will be happy, people get money, people will be more poor, etc. But what types of people? I mean, you will never satisfy people per group, like per majority, right? So you need to be specific. What types of people will react to this? Why this type of people will actually react, right? What is their incentives? Why that will be the flip side? Why that will be the tipping point for them? Like, people are always using this word, right? I think if you know where is the tipping point, that's make your argument much, much stronger. The tipping point is the question, what needs to be offered to me for me to change my mind? So how you can change the people perception or people action depends what is the most persuasive for them, what is the most important, and why they will take the certain action or certain decision, right? Therefore, in policy motion, all of these factors should be covered and should be discussed. Of course, in the start, it will be extremely hard to do for you to do this every time. But I think it's good to practice, especially when it's a lot of practice rounds, when a lot of societies have online meetings, to try to do this before you will go to like the real tournament, to actual tournament, right? The second type of motion, and just to sum up, in policy motion, your burden of proof, it's not only A, this is legitimate or this is something what we can do. This is something which will be A, effective, B, something which will be done well, but 3, something which will be done better than the alternative. Because it's also sometimes hard when you said, we can do this, and Op said, yeah, we can do this. The question is, which way is better to make, right? So instead of saying only, this is something which we should do, this is something which we can do, you also said why we should do this in particular to achieve better effect in the opposition side. I will talk about principles later in general. About the debate framing. Okay, so I will put the debate framing here very shortly because I think that's Helena workshop in the future. So I will just do that very shortly. Framing, it's the way to prove why this topic and why this argument will be important. Therefore, in the debate about environment, framing will be explaining why we have urgency, why this is something which is necessarily to make for people to still have the prosperity and to function, right? In the debate about social justice, the framing will be about existing inequality and about people who didn't have like a chance to increase their capacity in life, right? So in very easy words, framing is the way for you to convince me that the issue about you are talking is important, or that this is something which I should care, right? Other than that, and other than Helena will deliver about framing, I will put here a link. This is a very good workshop about framing, delivered by MDG, who was CAing Mexico Worlds, who is European Open champion, Worlds finalist, blah, blah, blah. Like very, very long CV. And this workshop about framing is actually really good. And I'm surprised that you didn't know that, but I will copy that in a second in the chat to not forget later. This framing workshops, it's only 23 minutes, but it's very effective and very nice. Live comments. Where I can send the comment. Can you send a link which I sent? Okay, I will check later. If not, I will just copy from the private chat to someone from your society, and I hope that will be helpful. Okay. Therefore, that was like literally the brief thing, because I think the workshop about framing is completely different topic, and yeah, I think Helena is scheduled for this, or we can make this session other time. I will just move forward to types of motions because I think that's more basic and that's more important to understand before. Analysis motion. And here the question it's formulated in a different way, right? Because this house support, this house oppose, this house believes that. The question is if the statement is true, right? Like what is probably the expected way to make? What is the thing which will bring people more benefits? And also not if we should ban something, but like what kind of society we want to perceive, or also how this particular action will affect the other situation. So for example, like this house support polygamy, or like this house oppose the rise of startup culture, this house oppose the rise of sharing economy, etc., right? So you are not banning this, you are not implementing this. This is something which probably already happened. So the question is, if this process have more good things, more benefits, or more harmful issues, and it brings more problems for the society. Therefore, you need to think what is the metric how you want to solve this, right? So if I want to support polygamy, therefore, you need to frame the debate and explain what's happened, right? So probably status quo is we were dominated by monogamy for like thousands of years, right? Because that was our culture accept. That was something which was which was perpetuated later. And this is something which also creates the marriage. This is also something which creates certain dependency. That was also the tool which create the patriarchy, which harm women and harm their perception. That's the framing, right? You already hear that this is important issue. You already hear that that brings a lot of problems, or like that this occurs to a lot of different factors. Therefore, I'm interesting to hear how that's actually influence the stage and what I can understand, what I can take from this, right? Therefore, you need to think who is choosing this option, or who will be interested in this, right? Because probably people who will find the love of their life, who will want to create the family, who want to have a child, who are responsible, will never care about like polygamy being around, right? I mean, they will see this on the streets. They will see that in this country. They might be a little bit like, what is this? But that will be not very strong negative reaction. Or if that will be strong negative reaction, you need to explain why. Like, why they will be pissed, why they will react negatively, right? But probably this is something which will be important for people who want to be free, right? Who don't want to follow the patterns of conservative societies. The people who don't want to be hurt or don't want to be limited of their sexual freedom, or like love freedom or whatever, right? So therefore, you can't debate this motion everywhere for everyone in every circumstance. You need to be more specific, and you need to look at how that actually will play out and how that will actually apply to people, etc., right? Also, if you have in the motion this house supports the rise of something, you don't have a burden of proof to say that this is horrible in every instance. You can set that you don't want this to increase influence on people, and you are seeing that after that being commercialized, like for example sharing economy, Uber or whatever, like other business, therefore that started to create problems. Therefore people were more dependent on this. Therefore people had like the more bonding, etc., right? So that's also some kind of important issues with this. To sum up this, when you have the motion, this house supports something, this house opposes something, you need to think how that was made in the society, how people are reacting, and who might be influenced by this particular narrative. Then you also need to think how this issue is sold or presented in the marketing pitch of the state or media or people who are doing certain things, right? So I think this is also something. Which might be important. Therefore, let's talk about the other types, because this is quite easy, right? Usually, you know that you neither need to oppose, that you neither need to support. Usually, you know that you need to prove that that's have more benefits than harm. So the metrics are quite clear. Analysis motion. This is something more problematic, right? So that's the motion, which usually it's phrased like this house preferred a world in which, or this house preferred a world in which X rather than Z. That means that you prefer something which probably didn't exist, which probably never exists, or which probably is now a minority, and you need to make that dominant. Therefore, a lot of things changed, right? If this is something which is present in the society, this is something which is majority, that means that you need to characterize how that's work as a whole, not only this one particular thing, right? So you need to presume or analyze what is likely to happen, how people are likely to react, or what kind of fields this is likely to impact. Because opposition, it's forced to defend status quo. They can say that something might be better. They can find alternative X. They can find alternative B and say why this is better. They need to refer to status quo. Therefore, you need to attack on your prep time and think what is problematic in status quo and what I'm capable to solve, and how, because of this, I can influence all of these lines and appeal to this, right? Therefore, always remember and keep in mind on your prep that you need to be clear how that will be looks like, because judge also need to be clear what you are proving, like how. If you are preferring the word without religion, then you need to tell me if all of the parts of religion will be demolished, or people maybe still will create some kind of moral values, but not believing in some spiritual God, right? You need to be realistic and think, if that will happen, if that will change, how that will affect the people and how people will welcome this or not welcome or react in general, right? So I think this is something which is extremely, extremely important. Therefore, your prep time should be completely like focused on proving this one thing. Why this is the case? Because if you will draw impacts like, oh, if will be no religious war, no religious conflict, no people being coerced to believe something, no unhappy children, etc. Opposition might stand up and said, dude, this is like only no religion. People still can have conflicts. You still can have ethnic tensions. You still might have people who will be fighting against each other. Why all of this is linked to religion? And that's pointing out the huge loop, right? Which means that from point A to your impact, you miss to explain how this religion affects people, how this act on people, etc., which is problematic, right? Therefore, you need to think step by step. No religion, no authorities, no organizations. If it's no organization, and even if people will believe in something, they will not have leading tool. So probably the only leading tool will be the state and the head of the state, because states will probably still happen because people still need to be together, right? So that's the way how to understand and how to approach these types of motions. They are quite hard to do, and therefore the prep time is extremely important. Why the prep time is extremely important? Because during the debate, you can only type to your partner, right? I made the experiment once. So I put the people to the table. They can't speak. They can only write on paper. And then I put them to sit back to back and ask them questions about their speeches. Like, what is your main line? What is your end up point? What's your definition of this word? And the people who were from the same team, they didn't have the same answer because they were incapable to communicate. Therefore, on prep time, you should be communicate with your partner, and you should find like the middle ground, right? Do you think that this is plausible? Do you think that that will work that way? Can you understand me explaining this? And your partner is like, no, you have a gap here. What happened here? Therefore, in this motion, you need to spend significant amount of time to be sure that you present how this world looks like and how judges should see this world. And after that, draw the impacts and changes, who will be impacted, who will be influenced, etc., etc. Another motion, which it's also analysis motion. This house believes that X should do something, like usually this is like United Nations, United States, European Union, ASEAN, etc. This is not the actor motion. The motion had this phrase usually because this actor is the only one capable or realistic to do particular action, right? So probably when the motion is like, this house believes that African Union should adopt the common currency for the countries. This is not this house as African Union. So probably intuitively, the benefits for African Union will be also benefits for these countries, but not exclusive, right? So you need to think why this particular action will be good or bad, but including the perspective who is doing this, right? Because if United States is invading Iraq or Afghanistan, I can find 10 reasons why they're not the top actor and why this intervention will be not fully successful, right? But they are probably the only capable one who have enough resources, who will have enough legitimacy, and who will have enough permission from other countries, right? So probably the best strategy is not to bitch on United States and say why they're a horrible and bad actor, but why the intervention per se will be bad, because the intervention will be not the very successful one, 10 minutes, goodbye, few shots, and that's all, right? So the approach to come to this motion, it's not necessarily to be focused on the group which is doing this, but on the outcome, why regardless how this group will implement this, realistically, that will be not based on the narrative which people try to bring. So what I want to just make you carefully, if the motion it's not the actor motion, which is this house S, or you are someone this house would, therefore find the connection between the point and the actor who is doing the point, which might make this stronger or weaker, but not rely on full of your argumentation what will be the best for this actor or what will be the worst for this actor, right? So I think this is something critical in this type of motion. Also, if you're debating about interventions, for me and for you, intervention might have different meaning. So you're probably expected to give some details to show how this intervention will look like, to give at least piece of information which might help people to see and to not be attacked by opposition team very quickly. But also remember this, and this is crucial, so you can write it on your notes. You need to have proportionate mechanisms to your outcome and to your impacts. So if in the motion this house would invade Iraq or Afghanistan, you're claiming that you will achieve peace, that you will have prosperity, that you will make democratic governance there, then you can't make the diplomatic intervention, right? Because it's extremely hard to prove that the diplomatic intervention, when people will go and chat, will bring all of these benefits. You will probably need to make military intervention. You will probably need to kill some of the bands. You probably need to kill some of the members of the Afghani regime, right? Therefore, you need to be sure that the measure and the amount of impact which you're trying to use in the motion, it's proportionate to the outcome which you want to achieve. The same happens with increasing taxes. So if you want to increase certain tax, and as opening government, you will be like, oh yeah, we increased this tax, but on 2%. And then you are picturing the amazing story, like people will be rich, no more poor, people will have better education, better infrastructure, we will have better roads, we will invest in healthcare, etc. Cool. How all of this will be made by 2%? It's super hard, right? So you need to go hard, like that needs to be something which is proportionate. So neither you are very soft, you have low impact, but you are defending this, or neither you are going hardcore and you are saying that the goal which you want to achieve and which you will be capable to achieve is more important than some kind of obstacles or some kind of problems which you could have in the middle, right? And this is extremely, extremely important. Actor motion. Actor motion is this house as someone. You don't need to repeat, because I was doing that for first year of my debating. In this motion, you don't need to repeat in every sentence as United States or as a parent or as a school, but you need to take the mindset of this person, right? The question is, who is this person or organization? You can't assume best case scenario, and op can't assume worst case scenario. So I was judging recently the motion, this house as average individual would prefer to be born as asexual. So you can't claim as opening government that this will help you to not go to abusive relation, that will solve the problem with people overusing power in relation, that will be problematic for women because women will be harmed by being asexual. You can't make assumptions. If you make more assumptions, then your case is conditional if people will buy this characteristic or if all of this condition will happen, which is problematic, right? So probably you need to find the common ground or the likelihood what will happen to this person. Therefore, you can set that, hey, so finding love and finding the fulfillment is extremely hard in the current status quo. Therefore, it's likely that we will be not 100% happy in our relation, or it will be not easy way to find a relation, right? I hope that it's quite clear what is the difference. Therefore, you're analyzing why this individual it's likely to be in this scenario, but you are not assuming that this individual will be in the fucked up scenario in the first place, right? So I think this is something which is also important to note and connect to individual. Therefore, in the end, you can explain why, regardless of outcome for the whole population, regardless of final thing, the interest of this person, it's more important. For example, the morality of this person, for example, the future of this person, for example, the responsibility of the person, which is as the actor motion. But the weighing needs to be done. So you need to explain why something matters, or also, again, where is the tipping point for this person, and what is the reasoning to make certain action, what is the alternative, what you can do to achieve the other thing. Lastly, and I think that's the problematic part of debating, this house regrets motion. So you can only regret something which actually happened. You can't regret something which might happen in the future, right? Therefore, government is talking about counterfactual. What does it mean? That means that if something will not happen, some event or some process, what will replace this process? Or will be like just like a whole, we will move forward, or that will be not dominate, or maybe something other happen. Like this house regrets the creation of European Union. This house regrets let me find the idea. This house regrets the sharing economy. This house regrets the glorification of workers. This house regrets the glorification of hard work, etc. Therefore, the question is, if without this glorification, then this process will exist just like this, or something will change. So you need to define and explain what was likely to happen and what was likely to replace this, and opposition need to defend why this particular process had inherent benefit for specific groups, but also why this counterfactual and the risk might create more harm than in the first place, right? So I think you need to be sure what you are defining, what will happen instead. And like I said, you need to point brand new world and said everything will change. But you need to measure the amount of change which you want to make, right? So that was about definitions and types of motions, how to approach them, and what should be careful. Now, few general tips and then your questions to me, and I will try to respond, and also I will respond to the principal one. So lastly, you need to make the level of debate quite universal, right? What mean the universal level of the debate? That need to have the level of generality. Why this is the case? Because if you create the bonds between your arguments, between the characteristic which you are giving, you are requiring specific circumstances to exist for your case to be true, right? Because you're assuming that person or organization or country have specific threats. Therefore, that helps or strengthens the particular policy in the motion, and therefore the effect or outcome happen. You need to be careful with this, because if you give more conditions, then your case is also specific. Your case is not applying to every group in the debate. Therefore, you need to explain why this is important, or also be sure that you are analyzing that well to not be attacked by opposition, right? So that's about the level of generality, to not assuming additional features. Status quo, you need to explain what's happened currently, what is likely to happen to make situation worse, how you can react, and what are the other alternatives to do. Sorry, I'm coming back just a second. Sorry, my mom just brings my dog here to the room, and I needed to tell her that I'm busy. Okay, cool. So back to the topic. So in terms of level of generality, I said this. In terms of conditions, I said status quo and problem. So you need to set the debate and explain why things happen, why you need to react, or what will happen if you will not react, which is usually opposition, like, oh, we have alternatives, we can do this in particular way, we can respond to this, right? Therefore, you need to explain why this is probably the best way, why this is something which might happen, and why this is something which brings specific benefits, right? Therefore, you need to tell why you need to solve this problem, why this problem is urgent, and gave us some kind of understanding what's going on in the debate and framing why this is important, why we should care. So that's about the contextualization and about setting the debate. To be clear that we all know why we are listening to this and why it might be important. What more about definitions? Yeah, so in the end, just to sum up all of this, the proper case need to have reasoning why the case is good or might be successfully delivered, or why it's morally legitimate to do this, etc. Second of all, what will be the implementation of this, how that will happen, or how this creates the message, if that's the narrative debate. Thirdly, how people will react will be the outcome, and how you can achieve your goals. And lastly, why this is the best plausible way, not only the plausible way, and why you should care about this. So that is the summary of what I just said, and with a lot of examples. Now I will look into questions. What's the best way to rebuttal principal argument versus consequential argument? Okay, so I think rebuttal, it's depends on the case, of course, but you need to think how this principle is implemented and if this principle is available for everyone, right? So, for example, if the principle is everyone should have a right to vote and everyone should choose if they want to vote or not, or on who they want to vote, how many people actually have right to do this, right? Like fully right to do this, because maybe you don't have enough information, maybe you don't have enough candidates to do this, maybe you don't have enough knowledge to fully using or fully deliver this principle. So if you want to rebut principle, check what are the conditions for the principle to be true, or for this principle to be fully satisfied for the people who are using this principle, right? So if, for example, victim justice in the criminal justice debate, that all victims should get their retribution, victims deliver some kind of justice and put people to jail. Especially in the Me Too movement, that was very large discussion. But how this principle can be delivered in the status quo? Like how you can be ensured that these people will receive the full right or full satisfaction from this principle. Therefore, you can say that the consequences, which like forcing people to do something or like changing the particular narrative, it's something which give you direct and guaranteed effect for thing, right? So I think this is also, that might be also something important. How to set argument properly? I responded. What is the best policy to build our principle? So I think it's a lot of good workshops about principle. One is Lucia Archa about principles, one is Ashish Kumar, and one lastly is Nish. I think you need to, I don't think that delivering workshop about building principles I can do in like 10 minutes. So I can also recommend you some sources. I will recommend 2 sources, which I watched and which I think are good. If you will have also questions, you can text me on Facebook. It's fine. I will respond. I will respond and give you some kind of other links, or also respond to your questions, because I don't think that we have that much time to deliver principles as a whole. Okay, debate framing. I said something. If you have any more questions, you can write that down now on the chat, and I will try to respond. Just literally, like I can't talk about like framing on principles, because this is another workshop. This is like 1.5 hours. Which motion we need policy in the motion, which is this house would do something, this house would ban, this house would implement, this house would invade, like everything which requires some kind of action or some kind of change in the law or some kind of implementation directly, right? Which means that if you will do the thing which is in the motion, that will be done immediately and that will have certain consequences. Not necessarily if people will buy this or if people will listen to this, but change will happen instantly. So you need the policy to the policy motions, like to the motions which creating the change. But also, you just need to explain implementation, not necessarily like. I think the policy motion need some detailed mechanism, but not necessarily that motions need policy, if that's responding to your question. Or if not responding, if you can phrase that otherwise, so I will try to respond. You can also write the questions which about like specific motion. If you have this, it's fine. I have like 10 minutes left. So that's why I don't want to start like framing workshop or like principle workshop, because that will be not successful and also not fully. Right. You can also ask me questions.
I don't think anyone has any question. I myself have heard that everything seemed clear to me. And well, all the explanation came. If you give some suggestion to the novice debaters on how they will do well in the debate and
Ah,
how to maintain everything
okay.
would have been
So,
better.
I think it's few tips. So the first one is, if you are debating emotion and if you got fourth or if you got third or if you got second and you are unsatisfied, open the search in internet, open the YouTube, and try to find more information about the motion, like uh, IR motions, or like so I think you should work and think after the debate what I can do better, right? Check your notes, check the information, like what the YouTube video about like housing crisis, or check what people thinking about religion, or like what are the issues, or watch the debate which was streamed on similar topic, right? So I did that recently with my friend, that after the debate we call each other, and for 50 minutes he told me, hey, I think we won the round, but that's doesn't matter because we were not good. We feel that we might do better, right? So we sit for 50 minutes and we were like, so that was their case. How we responded? Yeah, that was meh. How we can respond better, right? So you're sitting with your partner and just evaluate how I can make this motion better and how I should be prepared for the next time, right? So I think this is something which might be very helpful. Second of all, if you look for Astana EUDC page, you have workshops there about prime minister speech, about social justice debates, which are very good quality, by the way, about big corporations, delivered by top debaters. Majority of the debaters are ESL. Therefore, the language is easy. Therefore, they also sometimes include like PowerPoint presentations, and they give very useful tools. Thirdly, I think you can just look for debate series posting or like YouTube workshops, and it writes to people who deliver these workshops, ask them questions if you don't understand, but most important, like search by yourself, just read things. Like I did so many debate about religion, which I was very bad, to understand finally what is the symmetry in this debate, how to understand this, what kind of arguments are not working, what is more successful. So I think it's a lot of self-determinants and a lot of looking for sources, listening to feedbacks, because even if you have like 4 people panel which judged you and the chair give you feedback, ask for individual feedback. Ask all of the panelists, like, why you gave me 4, like why you didn't, like maybe not with this tone, but like why you don't understand me, like do I miss something? Do you think that I didn't say this? Or even if I said this, why you didn't buy that? Therefore, you go into mindset of judges and you will see what people are expecting you to do, which help in terms of development, right? Next question. What types of motion are more important? So I would say that policy are important because they are usually the first round on the competition or also one on out round, because that requires you some kind of work, that requires you from understanding very comprehensive complexity of the motion, and the analysis one, right? So harms and goods are also how to approach it. I don't think that any of them are more important or less important. I think regrets happen not that often, but this is also not like useful tip. I think all of the types of motions need to be covered, and you just need to understand what people requires you to prove. Are they require you to prove that that will be effective, or they just require you to prove that that will be legitimate, or they just require you to prove that that will be good for this specific individual? Any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So if you have any specific questions, if you need more resources, if you want to chat about some kind of motion in particular, you can approach me via Facebook or yeah, I think via Facebook it's the best. You can send me message. I'm checking inbox or like spam box, so it's not a problem that I will not find this. I might not respond immediately because I have two competitions this weekend to judge and some other debate activities. But also on Monday, I'm giving a workshop on Astana page, which is follow up to these workshops, more advanced and more details about burdens in the debate and also how to approach this on the prep time. So you might also watch this. Maybe will be more information that will be also streamed and also saved for the futures. So you can also watch that in the other time if the 2 p.m. set it's not approachable for you. Therefore, thank you for your invitation. I'm always happy to help if I find the time. Sorry if I can't stay longer or also if I can't make like 2 or 3 hours, but I'm really need to go to another debate meeting and to some technical meetings, etc. I wish you best of luck. Like I said, you can text me, ask me about details. I hope that Helena also give you amazing workshops and you will find other people. And I hope to see you here at some competitions in near future.
First of all, this is our special matter session, a special show. In the pandemic moment, everyone around the world is locked in the house. It has both positive and negative aspects. The fact that Claudia has joined us today is a positive thing. And next, Halanchik will be our next foreign guest. Will be joined from the Germany, and all of you are invited for the next program. Besides, Claudia informed me that she is very busy this week. Even then, she loves the debate, so she will give time. And she she even judged me while talking to me on Messenger. Even then, she gave us time to make this program a success. And many thanks and gratitude on behalf of GVDS for Claudia. And Claudia, please tell me how it felt come to today's program.
How to what?
How it felt come to today's program. Failed.
It's fine. It's super nice. Like, uh, it's hard to say for me something more. It's nice. I'm also working with people from Bangladesh on like other situations. What are the most important thing to win the debate every time? So I will just finish on responding to these questions because I need to run to my debate, which started in like 10 minutes. So the most important thing to win debate every time, it's A, to read the motion and to know what you need to run. B, to listen to your opponents carefully and don't trivialize their points and treat them with respect because the motion probably have 4 sides or like 2 sides at once. So to be precise what you are attacking and also to explain to judge what is left standing. So when you mitigate the point of the other side, when you take down the point of the other side and nothing is left, in order and also how that's affected. So I think it's not easy to respond what is the most important thing to win all of the round. I think hard work. I think creating some kind of norm, what you are doing all around, what you are doing for every single round which you are participate, and then I think that brings benefits in the end. So I hope that was helpful. And again, text me if you have questions. You can find me. I will respond at some point. Good luck, and I wish you as much development as possible in the next few weeks and months or whatever. Thank you so much for invitation.
Okay, and thank you so much. Thank you so much, Claudia, for joining to us. And I don't think anyone has any question. I myself here heard that everything seemed clear to me, and well, all the explanation come. And we are again to thankful to her and gratitude to her. And next time we will invited to um, our next guest, the Halanchik, and you can join with us the next Sunday. Thank you all of the members, and thank you all of the audience.